Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm
Nice to
good.
meet you.
Nice to meet
um,
you as well.
yeah. Congratulations on Pam and Tommy. I actually one of my first things I wanted to say to you is that I think 2022 is the year of Sebastian Stan between Fresh and Pam and Tommy. I feel like you're everywhere right now. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's certainly been uh a very sort of gratifying experience, simply just because you don't often have, I guess, two things kind of timing out at the same time. And I was really lucky to be working all of last year. We were still very deep in the pandemic and stuff. And but also just when something comes out that you really poured your heart into and it connects with people, and people watch it definitely helps.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure. Yeah. I talked to the Pam and Tommy showrunner Robert about the first episode and how Tommy's such an interesting character to play. How the writers like dig themselves into this hole where you kind of hate Tommy at first. I was wondering, like, were you at all worried that you'd have trouble getting the audience to like Tommy?
um I didn't really worry so much about that, to be honest. I mean, you have to you're always sort of diving into this like a detective, and you're researching everything you can find, and you have to sort of kind of uh, you start out subjectively, and then you go objectively, and then you end up back subjectively in a way in the process, because you have to kind of really try to understand where they're coming from. And I yeah, but the scripts were so great, and I felt that if I just sort of follow the map that was already on the page, then I would, everything would sort of kind of be there. If I did the work, I guess, that it required. But it was, I knew that there was an arc in the show, and certainly the guys had stayed pretty true to the article, to the Rolling Stone article, and a lot of that was in the show was already out there in terms of, specifically for him, he had talked about it extensively in his book Tommyland that he wrote, and then also in interviews that are on YouTube. But of course, there was a little bit of finessing here and there to sort of make it a more heightened reality, because it is a show, it's not a documentary,
Right.
and therefore it has to sort of start out a certain way, in a way that you can understand the stakes. And I think the guys did that very creatively in the scripts.
Yeah, there's almost like a childlike energy to Tommy. Like I find him very likable, even in the beginning when you're mad at him, kind of the way he's treating Rand. But I was thinking about it, rewatching some scenes with you. That had to be exhausting to play because I feel like he's always yelling. Like he's on a scale of 1 to 10, he's like an 11. He yells so much.
Yeah, listen, it was, there was a lot of energy, and it almost feels like he's never not playing the drums. It's almost, if
Yeah,
you look at him in concert, um, which is one of the reasons he was so great at sort of playing the drums, then you sort of always see kind of that is, he's always moving, always sort of on a kind of moving through life, and so to speak. But there was a lot of coffee, and I actually used an earpiece for the first time in my life. I'd always heard about these tiny earpieces you can put in, and I actually would have a tiny earpiece in one of my ears throughout the scenes, and I would just play music, often Motley Crue music. So I would just always be hearing a song while we were doing the scenes, and it kind of helped me sort of always be kind of almost at that level of energy.
that's
It's
really
very interesting
interesting.
music, yeah,
Yeah.
while you're doing it, because, and I don't think it just depends on what it's for, but in this particular case, I found it really effective.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is so cool. Another scene. So I was thinking about like there's like vulnerability in Tommy that we see I would say in a few times in the whole series, but one of them is the tub scene with Lily, where you guys are kind of like being intimate together for the first time, and you have such an intense look on your face, almost like you're an alien discovering what humans are, you know, maybe even an animal. It almost feels like National Geographic. And I was wondering, what were you going for in that scene? What was it like filming it?
Well, I think Craig had a very specific take on it. You know, he was like, you guys are, it's as if you're just experiencing each other. You are for the first time, but you're also on ecstasy. Now, I've never actually done ecstasy, so I don't even know what. I'm just too scared to be honest. Like I'm, you know, but from what I understood and from what I've been told and what I've researched in Craig's direction, it was just everything was amplified and everything felt like this new kind of moment. And there were, you know, being so present with your partner and kind of like focusing on every little detail. And but it's, I always thought this part was very funny when I think it's definitely in the Rolling Stones article. I know he's talked about it in the book, but he did say that when he first saw her at that nightclub, he was on ecstasy, and he was like, yeah, it was like sort of this light from God, you know, kind of like just this shining light, you know, in amidst this whole darkness, you know, kind of. So you're just kind of envisioning what that might have been like, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's an important scene because you're supposed to see how intense that connection was at that point.
I thought it was really effective because, like, I was even thinking about how the scene before it, where you guys reveal yourselves to each other, and how juxtaposed against like the intimacy of the tub scene versus like seeing each other naked for the first time, I thought was like, because he's just, I love whenever you kind of like just wink at her when you, that was
Listen,
so
I did a
funny.
lot of takes. I didn't really think he was going to go with the winking take, to
Really?
be honest. I'm like, oh, Craig, you know. But look, he's a direct. I trust everything he does, and
What
so
other
I'm
takes
like,
did you have? Did you have different like?
I think I had much more. I had a lot more vulnerable and innocent takes, you know, kind of.
Really?
But that one, he really went for the strong, confident one, and I'm like, okay, but
I
you know,
thought
what
it
are you
was
gonna do?
great. I
I'm
thought it was
glad it worked.
fantastic. Yeah, it
Glad,
was so Tommy Lee too. It felt very like very Tommy Lee. I have to ask you about, so obviously you have a conversation with your penis in the show. Jason
yes.
Mantzoukas does the voice. But you guys have a great chemistry. You know, did you rehearse with him? What was the process like of filming that?
He wasn't there. He actually
Really?
wasn't there on the day. We didn't know who we were going to get at that point, but the guys I think called me at one point. They were like, what do you think? Do you think like Chris Evans would do this with you? And I was like, I'm not calling him, okay, like to ask him to do this. I'm like, but anyway, so I don't think that they didn't know at the time. We didn't even know if that scene was going to make it, period.
Wow.
You know, it was such a, it was very, but again, the word for word, line for line, it's what was written. I mean, again, it's the credit to the writing because it was on the page. It was written like that. And I always talked about it as like at its core, it's very much a confessional scene. It's very much sort of a, you know, when you're telling a friend of yours that you're, my God, I'm like developing feelings for this person, you know, and I'm kind of scared, and so it's a vulnerable scene like that. But then we thought, well, we're not going to know until we have the whole episode if it's too much, if it makes sense, if it doesn't. And then fortunately they decided to kind of keep it. And so I was happy about that, and obviously because it's very much an homage to the book that he wrote, Tommyland, where his penis is a character,
Yeah.
essentially.
I read that you said you could have done 8 more episodes of this story, which I tend to agree. I think there is more that you could have explored between. I mean, especially since they get married, they get divorced, they get married again, right? I think they get married twice.
I
Um,
think, yeah, I think I meant more like I think it was, I felt that by the time we reached the end, on a creative level, with the work that went into it, it was the first time I actually felt like, oh, I feel like I understand so much more now, I feel like if we restarted again, I could bring all this other stuff to it. I think it's always that way when you're finishing something that feels where a lot of you has gone into it, because there's that part suddenly of things kind of coming to an end, and there's a nostalgic element to it, especially if it was a good experience, which this was on a creative level, and the collaboration, everybody involved. But also you're understanding pieces of a character as you are doing it, and you never really arrive at a sort of okay, this is it place, and you shouldn't. I think it's always, you're just always exploring it, and there's always going to be another piece you're going to find out at the very end that you didn't think about, that you thought, oh, maybe I could go back to. So I think it was more me, and I think Lily sort of felt the same way. Kind of, we were both sort of sad to say goodbye in a way at a point.
Yeah,
It had been part of our lives for so long. I think for her, she knew about this, I think, over a year before we started. I had found out in October, and then suddenly it was August, and it was like 8 months of sort of this experience. So it takes a minute to kind of, say goodbye, I guess, in a way.
Would you ever then want to revisit, or like, no, or you kind of like done with Tommy? Because I was thinking about how would you ever like explore future of their relationship, because it kind of gets dark. I didn't know if that would be something you wouldn't want to explore.
I think far smarter, far more capable people than me can make that decision. I think for now, we came out of it with the best intentions. We hoped to bring further attention to this story in a way, and kind of let us rethink a little bit our own projections and perceptions of it. Certainly as an audience, hopefully as the media as well, and so if there's more, there will be more, but maybe that will be explored in Pamela's documentary, which will be even more important.
Yeah, so, I actually am really excited about that too. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much. Those are all my questions. It was such a pleasure chatting with you. Yeah, great work.
You too. Thanks for enjoying the show.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
All right.
Have a good one.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too. Okay. Bye.